So recently I was on Threads and I posted questions in my community. And the question was like, hey, I have a podcast. It's about parents and sports and all the things. Just curious if anybody would like to join. And the post got a ton of responses. I think I expected like 3, maybe. I think I got like 30, which is pretty cool. And so thankfully over the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna have a lot of really cool guests on, which I'm super excited about. But there was one person in particular who I'd been following for a long time, and her name is Tanya Hayles. And Tanya, super cool, one of the OGs of the NBA Threads, and just such a huge part of that community. She's from Toronto, and I would always see her post. And I'm like, man, she's super cool. So I've been following her for a minute. And lo and behold, I think it was the day after I posted it, Tanya actually responded to my post saying, oh yeah, this actually sounds like it could be quite interesting, which is amazing because I was like 48 hours away from asking her if she would want to be on. Of course, that forever anyway. But such a cool person. But what I loved about it is when I have guests on the podcast, I love to ask questions and I love to dive deep. I certainly don't want to have guests on the show and just ask standard questions like, what's up? How's your day going? What are you passionate about? Things like that, So I go deep. Like, this might scare off a couple of future guests. I'm sorry, but like, I find people's LinkedIn profiles. I see like what they're into there. I go to their websites. I go to anywhere I can find to really find those nuggets that make people interesting. That way, I don't know, we can have a better conversation, so to speak. And with Tanya, again, I knew her from NBA Threads, and I knew about her love for basketball and WNBA and Toronto and things like that. But then I'm diving in and I'm like, oh, she leads a community called Black Moms Connection, and it's got 40,000 members in it. Like, that's insane. On top of that, she also hosted a TEDx. She spoke at a TEDx conference and gave an amazing speech that I watched the other night, and I was almost in tears watching it. Like, absolutely amazing. So I'm going into this conversation thinking I'm just going to talk about basketball and parenting, and I find out that Tanya, like a lot of people, is just an amazing person through and through. So this is the conversation with Tanya today. I'm super excited to bring it to you. And again, this is going to be the first of a lot of conversations I'm going to be having with people over the next couple weeks and couple months. And oh my goodness, it's been so much fun. I love doing the solo episodes, but interviewing people in community, for me, that's where it's at. So we're going to be doing a lot of that in the next couple weeks. And if you are somebody who, I don't know, you got a story to tell, let me know. I'm all about storytelling, so let's do this. Anyway, so far, this has all been off the top of the dome because it is Monday nights, and this thing comes out tomorrow morning. So super thrilled. Also, the WNBA draft was tonight. Shout out to Paige Beckers and Dallas Wings. Obviously my team is the Fever, so shout out Fever. But Paige Beckers is going to be absolutely amazing. Tanya and I get into a little bit of the draft, and I know this is an audio podcast, but both Tanya and I were wearing WNBA merch during the recording of it. So, once I saw her pop on in the orange hoodie, I was like, this is my person right here. Anyway, the podcast is a little bit long, so let me dive right into it. Thank you for being here for another episode of Course Sad Forever, because as parents, we've got the best seats in the house. Let's enjoy them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited. With us today on Course Sad Forever, we've got a professional community builder. We've got the host of the Event Bestie podcast, a TEDx speaker, a huge basketball fan, one of my favorite people to follow on Threads, and I think this is true, our very first Canadian on the podcast. We've got the one, the only, Tanya Hayles, everybody. Tanya, how are you doing today?
I love that introduction. I want you to follow me around everywhere. I love it so much.
Anywhere. I'm happy to do it. Record that intro. I can spice it up every single time. Whatever you need. I can be your personal hype man. All for it. But I am so excited to talk to you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I know. We Threads is a place where both you and I are pretty active, and I know right now there's people on Twitter, Blue Sky. Threads, I don't know. Like, I'm too old to be switching between everything. I just kind of pick Threads, and people are like, "Oh, nobody's on Threads." I'm like, I don't care. Like, I just
which is
The
also
people I
not.
like are on Threads, so that's all I care about.
And also, that's not true. Depending upon what you're into, like
Yes.
NBA Threads was one of the first real communities to be able to build itself out of nothing. There were before there was hashtags, before there was a way to organize people
Mm-hmm.
by interest. We were doing that. We got airtables. There was people like it was great. F1 Threads is a really also huge community. So I'm just like, it is. I'm just like it's Twitter with less Nazis and ads. Like it's great. So.
that is that is my kind of space. Speaking my language already. Now, obviously, the digital landscape is your forte. You know community, and you were the digital strategy and development manager for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which has 8 subsidiaries, including the Toronto Maple Leafs for hockey, and also probably most, closer to my heart, the Toronto Raptors in the NBA. So, in short, during your time there for your 2 years, I believe, what was your main focus in that role?
So I actually worked for the charitable arm of MLSE.
Oh, I
So we
love
were
it.
across all the teams. Like you mentioned, the Leafs, the Raptors. We also have an MLS team. There's a CFL Canadian football team. There's a lot going on
Mm-hmm.
over there. And then the concerts and like special events. So like
Oh my
UFC,
goodness, yeah.
WWE. When the WNBA had its first game in Toronto, it was at the same building. So it was a really big deal. So it's a
Yeah.
truly the epicenter of sports and entertainment in the city. So sorry to the Toronto Blue Jays and the Toronto Tempo, which are not owned by MLSE.
All good.
Um, but my focus was, yeah, really just trying to help change the game for kids. And, I have a soft
Mm,
spot there for two reasons. One, I'm a mom of a 12-year-old boy who has NBA aspirations, like all 12-year-old boys do, I think.
of course.
And really just in terms of making sure that, access to a safe a place for kids to play is key. So MLSC Launchpad is kind of the community hub where kids can go, and we use sport to tell a language and to teach. So it was sports and
Mm,
STEM. It was sports and mental health. It was sports and cooking and nutrition. Like it wasn't just play basketball. It was how does basketball fit into your math homework?
yeah.
So it was really, really powerful, and has a founder of my own digital community, Black Moms Connection. Anything to do with kids, it all just kind of aligned. So it was really a great opportunity to do some marketing, some doing events. So Rhapsody Social, Leafs Golf, Leafs Gala, TFC's Red Star Way, volunteering when the players go out to the community to do things with the differently abled kids or
Mm,
disabled kids, like Variety Village. So just a lot of different things that I was able to do and really see just how much it means for the community, whether it's kids or otherwise, when these players show up. It was such a beautiful thing, and such a great place to be able to be a part of for a couple of years.
that's amazing. The charitable arm of the organizations, like I know I follow like NBA Cares, for example, and I know
Yeah.
there's all sorts of things, and I know every kind of league or every team has kind of like their own. Like, what was one of your favorite events that you were a part of during your time there?
Oh my gosh, that's a really hard question.
I bet.
I would say, well, one of my favorite events is actually not public facing. It's media day. It's like picture
Oh.
day, but for the leagues. So it's like when they get their official headshots done,
Mm-hmm.
all those vignettes, all those, when you're watching and they're like shooting, they're dribbling a fake basketball or they're doing whatever, they're staring off into the sky. Like all that gets filmed in one day.
Yeah.
So it was, and they have all these different stations. They're like, okay, switch. And they have handlers for each player to get them to and from these stations on time. They have NBA, the league, you have NBA Canada, you have like it was for me, an event nerd. I was like, there's so many things happening all at once.
Yeah.
And then the last one I was a part of, I think Dennis Schroeder had just gotten traded and he was like
Mm.
on his way to Canada from Germany. And they were like, we had to like Photoshop him in some places in the interim. And I was just like, I know the marketing team is just so fed up
Oh
with
yeah.
but it was such a fun thing. But I would say the public facing one was when the Raptors did Variety Village. So that's working, it's a community organization with kids who are differently abled. So, they use assistive devices, wheelchairs, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing just like, again, how much it meant to the kids to have them show up. And like some of the players, like playing wheelchair basketball, and
Yeah.
like they're professional athletes, but they're like, I can't do this. They're like,
Oh
this is
yeah.
hard. I'm like, yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
it is hard. And so they had a newfound respect for the athletes who use wheelchairs. But then, of course, the athletes who use the wheelchairs are just like, wow, like look at them, like we're the same level, literally. We're
For
equal.
sure.
Uh, so that was such a beautiful day, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that is amazing. Now, I'm always curious about the behind the scenes aspect of sports. And, clearly we love the games, but there are thousands of people like you and like your colleagues, like who all make everything work from, again, like the in arena stuff. Like I go to those games and you see the players playing those games, like all of that happens on media day and all of that stuff. So, to my knowledge, though, you don't have a big background in working in sports. Is that accurate? So with that, like what is the biggest difference of working in sports versus working maybe in other industries?
Oh my gosh. So I think my background actually lended itself really well to being in sports.
Oh
One,
cool.
I used to plan events for a living. I had my own event planning agency, and then the world closed with with the
Oh.
COVIDs.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I worked for an event catering company, so I did weddings, galas, birthday parties. Like I was in horse barns and I was in Hermes. Like I had a very varied life that was long days, long hours, and events are living, breathing things. You can plan all
Mm.
you want, but it's gonna go in the direction in which to go in. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the key things that helped me secure this job. And not so much like obviously like game ops is a whole department. They do a lot of work. All those games, who the ball boy, like there's so
Mm-hmm.
much that goes on into putting on a game, and it is an event in of itself. And of course, there's rules. You can't come out of a timeout late, or you're gonna get fined. Like there's a lot that goes into putting a game together. But just working in MLSC as a whole, you know. I was able to adapt really quickly. When you're an event planner, you gotta you gotta come up with things on the fly. If
Mm-hmm.
there's player that's late, or he's not where he's supposed to be, or he's lost, like you got to find him. You got to get
Yeah.
him to where he needs to be. So I think having my events background was actually super helpful in saying, okay, she knows how to adapt really quickly, she knows how to move fast. Like it's a long season but a short season. October comes, and then before you know it, it's April, and you're like, oh snap, the season's over and now it's playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the switch to that, and so there's a lot of things with that was super helpful. And then also the fact that I've been around celebrities, right? I've had celebrities
Yeah.
on my stages when I did events, and so being around the athletes, I mean, it's rule number one is, you know be friendly, but you're at work, act like you've been there before. And
Yes.
so they have to be able to trust you, that you have their back and that you're going to get them in and out as you need. And
Yeah.
so for that, like I don't have I'm not shy, but I'm not like bright eye bushy tail around the players either, because I'm just
Yeah.
like, we both park in the same parking lot, literally.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, we're coworkers. You're more public facing, and no one knows me. But
Yep.
at the end of the day, like being able to, they know you have their back. They know that, okay, you're a trusted, vetted person who works here, and you're not going to be, asking me crazy questions or asking for autographs, which is like the biggest no-no ever.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, and you build relationships with them, right? Like there's some CFL players that like now we follow each other on socials, and we chat, because like they would just come by the funny thing is people are just like, oh my gosh, you work in the coolest place, you must see them all the time. I'm just like, first of all, no. But then
Yeah.
you be
Mm.
at your desk minding your own business, and then like there's like CFL players and NFL players, and like it was just,
Mm-hmm.
your life is just so random, and you have to be able to deal with the randomness.
For
And
sure.
events helped me absolutely in that particular space.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you like you said, you deal with all sorts of people, and I know recently you were on a panel with Carmen Dick, who's the mother of Raptors young player, young star, young. I don't know how we would. It could be future star
It's
Grady
your
Dick.
answer. Let's go with that one.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that. I enjoy him. And I don't know much about her story, but I do know that she's been really involved with him becoming an NBA player. So being on that panel, like, what did you learn about her role as a mom and supporting her son's NBA dreams?
Oh man, first of all, it was totally surprise and accidental. I was supposed to be
Hmm.
supporting with the event, and they're just like, "Hey, can you be on the panel?" I'm just like, "I'm not dressed for that." So let's start there, but you know what? Stay ready, don't gotta get ready.
For
And
sure.
so what was beautiful was just the sacrifice. And I know if you are a sport parent,
Hmm.
you know how much goes into it. You know the early days,
Hmm.
the long weekends. But I think what stood out to me was when she was saying like they would drive to New York like every other weekend or something like that. And I'm like, first of all, Toronto to New York City is not a close drive. That's like
Yeah.
12 hours, right?
Hmm.
That's not going Toronto to Buffalo, which is 2 hours.
Hmm.
And so when you think about the sacrifice that you have to make, and then what was very important was she's just like, they have other kids. So you can't just pour all your resources into the one. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that all your children are equally valued and loved by their parents. And so, who's going with who, where, who's got who's like just the project management alone. But
Oh
I
my
think
goodness. Yeah.
such a key thing where she really, spoke about making sure that her other children, didn't, fall through the cracks or fall by the wayside either in trying to
Yeah.
help him pursue his professional dreams.
Hmm.
And, not to name drop, but gonna name drop a little bit. When I
As
did
you
an event,
should.
I mean, listen. So I did an event a few years ago, and Miss Tina Knowles, the mama of Solange and Beyonce, was on the
Beyonce.
stage.
Yes.
I know, right? And I'm just like, listen, for the viewers that don't know who Miss Tina is,
I
but
know.
she was really speaking about that also when the girls were younger,
Hmm.
making sure that she didn't just have one that she, focused on. Like they're different. They have different
Hmm.
interests. They're different ages. And so really making sure. And so like, Carmen really reiterated that, especially if you're a parent of more than one child,
Hmm.
and you have both in sports, or maybe one is just in sports, just making sure to be so intentional about pouring into both your children or all your children as equally as you can.
Yeah.
But the sleep sacrifice, the financial sacrifice, it paid off obviously for the Dick family.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always for everyone else. And so, and not everyone has the capabilities, right? Like I'm a
Hmm.
single parent, so I'm just like it would be me doing all of the driving.
Hmm.
And if I was to do that, that sounds like something that I wouldn't do. But,
Oh yeah.
you know, fast forward a couple of years, maybe I'm gonna have to be the AAU mom. Who knows?
Hmm.
But I think that it's just really important that you have such a clear vision, and it was very clear,
Yeah.
and a plan. This is not something you can just like fly by the seat of your pants, and
Hmm.
really just so intentional, um and supporting your kids. Like, if I've said to my son, I'm just like, you say you want to be a professional athlete. I'm just like, Kobe would be outside shooting right now. I'm just
Hmm.
saying, he wouldn't
Hmm.
be inside on his phone. He would be outside. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't get you to the leagues. Your hard work is going to get you there. My job is to pay for the things, drive you to the things, and
Hmm.
make sure that, you're staying on top of your hygiene and your health, which is like I buy the groceries. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't be the one that, you know, shows, your hard work and your ethic is going to get you there.
Oh, 100%.
And so I think like that's super key as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What you're speaking on resonates deeply with me right now because yesterday we were actually hanging out with some friends of ours and they have three kids. They're all in sports. One of which is in gymnastics or in gymnast. Oh my goodness, I cannot speak. One of which is in gymnastics. And they were talking about like the routine and everything related to it, and we were like, oh yeah, like maybe she'll get a college scholarship. And she was like, yeah, like that'd be great. And she goes, but at that time, like we've probably paid for two, like two
Mm,
full college scholarships by the time she even gets there. And I
right.
never really thought about like the amount. Like I know things cost money. Like I know AAU is an insane cost, like alone. But the amount of money that goes into hopefully getting a scholarship, I'm like, might be just cheaper to just do the college. Although obviously, if you do that, then you wouldn't have the abilities to get there. So it's a double-edged sword for sure, but you are doing it
Yes.
all. And I know how important all of that is, especially for kids who just want to play. And you mentioned that your son has NBA dreams, right? Like, how does he play? Like rec league? Is he playing AAU?
So he's only 12. So I haven't really started looking into the AAU-ness because I'm just like, I don't know
Smart.
when that does. Also, it's a very American thing, and I don't
Yeah.
even know how that works. There's a lot, and also there's a lot
Yeah.
happening right between the two countries. So,
There is. There is.
something going on. So he does. He's tried out with some rep teams. He has not made the ones that he tried out for, but he has a plan. He told me what he'd like to do this summer. He's just like, I'm going to try out for two. If I make one, then I'll go with that one. And so we talked it out, which is great. He told me when he was 8 where he wanted to go to school, and they were all U.S. schools. And I asked him, I'm
Yeah.
just like, why these U.S. schools? And he's just like, because it sounds better when you get drafted. And I'm like, you know what?
Mm.
I can't argue with your logic. The children are smarter than we give them credit for. They're
Mm-hmm.
paying attention. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? You're not wrong. So, and then we were watching a lot of WNBA, happy WNBA draft day.
That's
Um,
right.
and and he really like not fell in love. I mean, maybe it was a crush, but just like he was like all in on Angel Reese. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, LSU is my school. That's where I'm going. I'm doing it. I'm just like, all right, cool. And then we watched the US election. So the children have access to too much information and not all of
A
it is
lot.
real. So he
Yes.
came home and he's just like, I heard Trump won. I was just like, first of all, you just got home from school and you were all in math class. So how do you even know? Second of all, it's 3 o'clock Eastern, which means it's only noon Pacific, and the polls don't close for another 6 hours, 9 hours. He's like, oh. And I'm like, stop pretending that you guys all have the right news. That's fake news. So we sat down and watched it. And so that I had to explain to him the Electoral College and all these other
Mm-hmm.
things. And I'm just like, this state went red and this state went blue and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, oh, do I want to play in a red state? And so we started having this conversation. He's 12, right? And
Yeah.
really just thinking through all of these things that matter. So I say that to say, like, really just parents, the kids are smarter than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
They need you to guide them and give them information and I also don't have never asked my son what he wants to be when he grows up. I don't want my son dreaming of labor, right? And so I'm just like, he's 12. He wants to be an athlete and a YouTuber. And I'm just like, okay, is that gonna be the case when he's 15, 16? Probably not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be like probably work with dolphins. And then I was just like, oh, I'm gonna be a child psychologist. And then I'm gonna be a lawyer. And now I'm doing none of those things.
For sure.
So I think like, yeah, and the cost, we do have to talk about the cost, who gets to be included, who gets to be given opportunities, who gets to show up, who
Mm-hmm.
gets to get in front of these coaches who are going to recruit.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and who is that? Basketball used to be the the low entry point sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
I live in hockey country. So I've heard from hockey parents, like it's 5 a.m. practices, all the equipment, they grow out of their skates every 4 seconds. Like it is a very expensive sport, which is
It
why
is.
it looks like what it looks like. And basketball was not supposed to be that. And I'm worried about it becoming less of a low entry point. It should just require shoes and a ball. It should not
For sure.
require your ability to travel to New York City every other week. Like
Mm-hmm.
it should not, but I know that it's a privilege to get to the league, obviously. But
Yeah.
there's kids who have the skill, but just don't have the opportunity.
100%. I know I've got thoughts on this, and I want to gear it back towards you for sure. But it's funny because I started playing hockey. I grew up in upstate New York, so I played hockey, but it was the same thing. It was like, it's too expensive. Just like give them a ball and some shoes and like go outside. And that's how I got my start. And I feel I could be totally wrong, but I feel like a lot of the people who are getting seen now is because of social media and because of things that really don't have anything to do with basketball, quite frankly. And I, I think there's going to be a scout out there. There's going to be somebody who's going to revolutionize how to find people. Like Masai Ujiri probably like was really really good at that, like finding like hidden gems. And I think like the next Masai, like the next anybody like that is going to go out into the world and like go to places where kids are still hooping and not quote unquote playing the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, I could be wrong, but what do I know? But
I
yeah,
mean, you're probably not wrong because, I thought about my son wanted an Instagram and I was like, "You're 12? No." But he found a way to do it and I was just like, "Okay." And
yeah.
so we sat down and watched the documentary on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, and it was following LSU students. So Angel,
Mm.
Flage, Jaden, there's a gymnast, I think she's the most like followed athlete on TikTok or something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Broke down like all of like the NIL, and it broke down all these things. And I said, to my son, I'm just like, do you see how they talk about Angel? Do you see how these boys are following around the gymnast? She's a blonde hair, blue eye, perfect
Yeah.
bodied girl. Those
Libby
boys are
something,
following
yeah.
they're not following her around because they care about her as a gymnast. They're
Hmm.
following her around because they want access to her body.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation about that. I'm just like, when you put yourself out on socials, you do not get to control who's in your comments. You do not get to, I mean, you can turn things off and on,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, that means they're just going to be in your DMs, right? And so at the end
Hmm.
of the day, what I'm trying to protect you from is that too soon. But I also have to think about, and this is where the digital marketing strategist in me comes in, building your brand so that way you do get seen by whoever and get an invite to the AAU or whatever it is. Like,
Hmm.
sports parents used to just be the chauffeur and the bringer of snacks.
Yeah.
Now you gotta learn how to edit TikToks, which no,
Yes.
you gotta know brands, you gotta be able to read contracts, like and funny conversation. My son was just like, so Jaden Daniels, his mom is basically his manager. I think Floget's mom is also her manager.
Mm,
And
okay.
he's just like, okay, well, you could be my manager. I'm just like, I don't want to be your manager. He's like, why not? Yeah. He's like, you're the person I trust most in the world. I'm just like, but if you and I have a conflict, are you going to fire me? That would be
Mm,
really hard for you to do. And I don't
yes.
want to ever put you in that position of having to fire your mama. So what I would do is say, okay, you can have a team around you. One is going to be a financial advisor who's solely
Hmm.
focused on money and the numbers. And because that's not my strong suit. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm good at your overall overarching. But the person in your day to day, first of all, I don't want to work for you. That doesn't sound like fun. No, thank you. Just go and buy
Yeah.
me a house and call it a day. He's just like,
Yes.
okay,
Isn't that how it's supposed to go?
what else is supposed to? I'm like, this sounds like work. I
I
don't
know.
want to work for you. And
Like
so
you
we
said, I
laughed
don't
about
dream of labor. Like,
it. I
no,
don't
just
do
give me a
labor.
house.
I'm just like, you're writing out I gotta submit an invoice to
To my
son of Tanya
son?
Dale LLC, and he's gonna write me a check. That's the dumbest thing ever. And I mean, not to say like, obviously, there's a plenty of parents who are because they don't want their children to be taken advantage of and whatever, and they want to keep the
Yeah.
money in house. But I'm just like, but then what happens when the child wants to do something different from what your vision for them is? I'm just like,
For
your
sure.
job as a parent is to give your children roots and wings.
Hmm.
Give them a solid foundation in which to stand up and know who they are, but then give them wings so that they can say, I'm going to go and choose a different life than maybe that you envisioned for me. And I'm going to test it out. And I may fail, but at least I tried. And I
Hmm.
think, like, for me, that's what I'm just like, he's also started taking up boxing. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
he's probably more likely to get a boxing scholarship than he would a basketball scholarship because basketball is super competitive.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, for me, now my brain is thinking, okay, let me look into what does that entail and
Hmm.
what the other opportunities are for that sports. Not push it on him, but just say,
Yeah.
I did the math and the research and here's some options for you.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I obviously he's so lucky to have you in terms of in that position, and obviously MLSE was lucky to have you as well. And we're talking about the human side of sports, and I think a lot of people kind of forget about the human side. So like we mentioned, you have a lot of real experience around real players. And often when players get cut or traded, there's a human element that they are impacted by these moves. So regarding these moves, like what goes on behind the scenes that your average player or your average fan doesn't even think about?
Oh my gosh. So much.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to consider like, does the player in question have children? Right?
Yeah.
And was their whole family here to support them? So someone like Kyle, like he had young kids who were in the school system, you know, and so like it's not just moving it's not just moving to another city, it's moving to another country. In our particular case, of course, you know, what level are they supposed to be at? Are they going
Mm-hmm.
to be ahead? Are they going to be behind? Are
Yeah.
they going to stay? All these other things. Is it a long-term thing? Is it a short-term thing? So the length of the contract, the role that they play, like all these things play a role. There are people on Raptors teams and on NBA teams whose sole job is to help the player in this particular realm. Like
Mm.
their job is, what part of the city do you want to live in? One of the huge advantages that and why the Raptors historically had so many European players is Toronto is basically the world in one city.
Yeah.
I can go and leave my house and go from Little Italy to Little Portugal to Little Jamaica to Little India in all the span of like 20-minute drive from each other. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I eat really well in this city.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of European players, when they come over, they're like, oh, I already have a community here where I can speak the language, I can get food that's familiar. And those things matter,
Yeah.
right? In terms of if you're going to be homesick and missing Nona's pasta across the ocean, and then you can go down to this cafe where they only speak Italian, and
Mm-hmm.
someone's Nona is in the kitchen. That matters, and I
Yeah.
think that they don't live in Scotiabank Arena. They go to their homes and
Mm-hmm.
they interact with, they go shopping, they eat out, they do things, they live here. And I think that people forget that part is like they're human beings who do a job. Their job just happens to be
Yeah.
something super public and super
Yeah.
fun. It's still a job. They have to show up, practice. They have to do certain things that are league mandated, right? And in terms of like the NBA cares when there's an election, when there's a US election, all these
Mm-hmm.
other things, Martin Luther King Day, like there are things that are league mandated, there's things that are team mandated, there's a whole bunch of things. And of course, they have their own things. They've got their brand endorsements. They've got their own foundations. They've got people they have to take care of. So when a player gets traded, like it's immensely personal because there's
Mm-hmm.
people whose job has been to help guide them, help acclimatize them to the culture, the climate, etc. But then there's also just the logistics. And I think for me, the jarring part is like, you walk. I drive in, I park, okay, toot toots, and a pass, all these things,
Yeah.
and like walk in. The elevator banks have the players' faces on them because it's elevators,
Yeah.
and there's assets everywhere, whether it's printed or digital. And as soon
Mm-hmm.
as that trade happens, like the next time I went into work on a business day, it was all
Yeah.
gone. I was just like, oh, they had to peel off their faces, right?
Yeah.
Because we
Oh.
don't own the rights to their faces anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very abrupt. And the OG trade happened over the Christmas holidays, so I was
That's
just like,
right.
"Hey, I gotta." So I was getting text messages like, "Do you have anything with his name or face in it?" And I was like, "No." But so funny story. So one of the things that I was charged with doing was 50-50. If you've ever been to any kind of basketball game, a lot of them have it where like you buy a ticket and you win half the jackpot and then the other
Oh yeah.
half
Yeah.
goes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my primary kind of portfolios. And so I always pre-wrote my copy for the push notifications to the team app. And the one that I wrote was like out with the old, in with the new, start your year off on a winning note or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just like, that could be misconstrued with out with the old. And I was just like, they're like, can you rewrite that? I'm like, I'm rewriting it as we speak. I'm like on my phone,
Yeah.
taking the text, sending it to Digital Lab so that they can change the push notification, sending it to the director of brand for Toronto Raptors. This is over the Christmas holidays that I mentioned this part. So
Mm-hmm. Oh
like
yeah.
things like just because you're on holiday doesn't mean the teams are on holidays because the teams are still playing. And
Yeah.
so all of that. And then by the time I went back into the office, I was just like, things are being pulled away and like the full, because think about it too. It's not just individual players. Anything that had him as part of like the starting team, all that
Mm-hmm.
had to come down. And you're just like, "Dude, that takes so much work to put up. Like it is a ton of work. to do these things.
Yeah.
And, of course, there's people in the organization that know, but you can't say anything until it can't start peeling off his face, and you're just like, why are we pulling off OG's face
Yeah.
off things,
We're just
right?
gonna get
Like,
ahead of it.
which, right? Like, we're just taking advantage of the time. Like, no, you
Yeah.
can't do that. Because of course, if things leak, then they're just like, oh, gee, like that could be not good.
Mm-hmm.
And then some things are a surprise to the player themselves. So like, there's
Yeah.
just so many things that take part. And I was talking about this on Threads, ironically enough. I think Dennis Schroeder he was traded like twice in like the span of 2 weeks, and I'm just like, poor
He
guy.
was. Yeah, that
Everybody,
was a lot.
he's he's getting paid millions of dollars. He's fine. I'm just like, he's getting paid millions of dollars. But guys, there's something about knowing where your home is,
Yeah.
like where your home pillow is,
Mm-hmm.
and where like your favorite scented candle is. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, regular people love going on vacation. But
Yeah.
there's something about when you come home, you're like, in my own bed, the sweet spot,
Mm-hmm.
like the part on the couch. I'm like, he's not been able to build a home for himself
Yeah.
because he's always this trading chip. And I'm just like, just because he's getting paid millions of dollars to play a game doesn't mean that that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and the business side of any sport league, I'm just like, we have to remember that it's not just, oh, okay, well, he's being traded or whatever. I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
things matter. Like, who's gonna pack up your condo now? Who's going to, where's that all being shipped to? Are you gonna come back? Maybe you would just like, I really like that place. I gotta put it on the market. Like, all these things,
Mm-hmm.
like, are really big deals. Like, I can't see Giannis leaving the Bucks because he's got 5 children,
Yes.
right? Like,
That's a
that's a
lot.
lot of people to move. They know the school system, all their friends. Like, those things probably play a role in what decisions a player makes. But then you look at
Mm-hmm.
someone like Luka, like, he's gonna be heartbroken over that for a really long time. Like,
Long time. Mm-hmm.
his emotions on that return game in the tribute video,
Oh, I
I'm just
know.
like, it's still raw for him.
Yeah.
I heard that he had just bought a house
Mm-hmm.
when he
I
was
heard the same
traded,
thing.
and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
all these things matter, and it doesn't matter that he's making millions. I'm just like, he still wants a home for his family at the root of it, because he's not going to play basketball forever.
I
He
know.
could get hurt, you know,
Yes.
he
Oh,
could
for sure.
do something, and then that's it. And then what, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where is home for him? And so I think we have to always remember that. And last but not least on this point, and it drives me crazy, people are just like, I bought a ticket. They feel very entitled when they buy a ticket to the
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yeah.
I pay your salary. I'm like, first of all, guys, no, you don't. Okay. LeBron James is going to get paid whether you bought that courtside seat or not. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
the league makes their money from broadcast deals,
Mm.
not I'm just like, the cost to run an arena and the cost of your ticket is for the arena, not the particular players. That is, guys, that I don't
Ah.
even know what an NBA payroll looks like. I wouldn't even want to know. My brain would probably crash. It would just glitch
Yeah.
and just crash. But I need people to equate their ticket does not entitle them to be rude to these human beings
Mm-hmm.
who are there at work. PS, that is their work environment.
Mm-hmm.
You did not pay them. You did not write a check to LeBron James for whatever he makes in a year. You bought a ticket in order to see him play.
Yeah.
But your ticket is not in any way, shape, or form. Maybe a teeny tiny part, but very, very little. Because after you pay the arena and the arena staff and the insurance and I feel like player salary being part of the ticket is very, very minimal.
Yeah.
Um, so I need people to just be like, you're not, you didn't. So I need you to calm down, please and
There
thank
we go. You heard it here first. Tanya Hayles told you what's up around player salaries. My whole thing is when people talk about, like, complain about player salaries, I'm like, listen, like, somebody's gonna get paid. Do you want the owner to get paid, or do you want the player who, like, you're watching and have the jersey for? Like, yes, players make an insane amount of money, but also the owners of the team have literal billions of dollars and will have it for forever. And these players have, like, an 8-year window, maybe,
Thank
to like capitalize on that, maybe.
Yes.
And to your point, like after, if an injury comes or they get traded or cut, like if they retire at 28, 30, even 35, like they've got a long life ahead of them, and a lot of players, a lot of fans kind of move on. Like they might see them and go like, "Oh, you're my favorite player," but like I don't know. Like I'm a Pacers fan, and I saw somebody, this was a couple years ago, but somebody was like, "Hey, I just bought something on Facebook Marketplace from Rick Smits, who was like the starting center on our 2000 NBA Finals," and like 25 years later, he's on Facebook Marketplace selling like cabinets or chairs or tables or something like that. But it's like they've got a life to live. So, oh
They
my
do
goodness.
regular ass, ordinary ass
Yeah.
things. Like I think like for all of the glitz and the glamour, like if their child is in a school play, they still gotta show up to the school play. Like
Yeah.
they are still going to the someone is still baking or procuring goods for a bake sale. Like they still, if they're a parent, they still gotta do parental ass things. Okay.
Yes.
Do they have a higher budget? Sure. But I think also too, we also forget that the league is made up of a lot of teams with a lot of players, and the ones who are making stratospheric, just making up words now,
Yeah.
money is not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that's not even like they skew the average, but I'm like the average NBA player is not making the millions, right? LeBron is a billionaire. Okay,
Yes.
the majority of the league is not a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do not begrudge any player who makes a decision that is for his own or his family's best interest, because at the end of the day, it is a business. You could find yourself out of a job real quick,
Yeah.
and then what? You still have a mortgage. You probably have your family who's now, oh, you play in the NBA. Why should I have to pay rent? Like
Mm-hmm.
all these people that are around them that have their hands out. I'm just like, they're trying to maybe do good and have their own foundations. And,
Yeah.
if you don't, you might have an endorsement deal, but you're not the face. You're not Ant. You're not SGA, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think really people need to understand that the majority of this league is they're hardworking, making good, better money than you, but
Mm-hmm.
not I don't have to think about my retirement. And I love what you brought up about the age. I'm like, most of us would love to be able to retire at 35, 40
Mm-hmm.
and be like, that's it. Don't have to work for the rest of my life. That is literally the dream. But
Yeah.
you have to set yourself up financially, because if you live
Yes.
another 40 years, you know what I mean? Like, do you want to be selling furniture on Facebook Marketplace? Rick Smith's, like, first of all, that's a throwback.
Well,
And
he's like
I would
7 foot
have been
four
like,
too. I can just imagine like
I just,
showing up.
like, this is such fake news. You're not really Rick Smith. I'm just like, how do you feel about the Pistons? And he would have been like, the Pistons. I'll be like, all right, it
Yeah.
really is. Like, that is hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Now we've gone into basketball, we've gone into all the thing behind the scenes, but like there is so much. This it's not going to be a 2-part podcast, but I feel like I have all these questions. Like I want to go places, but I want to touch on this because like I actually watched this video coincidentally last night, and I was like, you are so powerful. And in 2022, you spoke at TEDx Toronto, and your talk was called "Parenting is Hard. Now try doing it as a Black mom." And you spoke about sunscreen for your son. You spoke about Barbie dolls and nude color band-aids. But you also got into some heavier topics, such as when your family had to change schools after your brother's third grade teacher called him a monkey. So my question for you is, what encouraged you to give this talk, and what did you learn about yourself in the aftermath of it?
Oh my gosh. Oof. Um, So much.
Yeah.
So much. First of all, shout out to anyone who has ever done a TED talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard work. And again,
Yeah.
people is like, you put on a stage and you spoke words. How hard can it be? Very difficult.
Yeah.
So here's the process. In January, I was pitched. There's a committee of people. Everyone's pitching people and this, at the other. You have to fit the theme. You have to right vibes, right place, right time. I was
Mm-hmm.
pitched. I was accepted. January. Cool. I was
Yeah.
assigned a coach. Great. What's your topic? Lay it out, write it out. Cool. Then you write your first script. You do a table read with all the coaches. They judge you what to edit, what to take out, what you emphasis, blah blahs. You
Mm-hmm.
re you rewrite your script, you do another table read, and then you're left to your own devices to memorize.
That's what I was wondering. I was watching it. I was like, I think she memorized this. And you
You
did.
don't get a confidence monitor for TED Talks,
Wow.
TEDx Talks.
Wow.
You have to memorize it. So when people make fun of TEDx speakers, they're like, oh, they all sound the same. They all have that same kind of TEDx cadence. It's because we're in our minds
Yeah.
trying not to talk too fast, but not talk too slow because you're on the clock
Yeah.
and remember everything that you wrote down.
Yeah.
Um, an hour before I got on stage, I did my last walk. I did my last kind of whatever go through with my coach. And she's like, that was amazing. You did perfectly, except for you missed two whole paragraphs. And I'm like,
Oh.
so now, like, I'm walking on this stage. I'm like barfy. I'm like, I
Mm.
regret every single decision I have ever made in my life that led to this exact moment. It was the first one in person post COVID,
Oh
so
yeah.
it's kind of an audience. My son's in the front row in his little suit, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna make it. I know it's being streamed live. Like, I was so nervous.
Yeah.
Um, and but telling the story, I call myself a creative storyteller. I love speaking. I love public speaking. I
Yeah.
love being on podcasts. I love hosting my own podcast. I love being a moderator. Put a mic in my hand, I'm a happy girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a chatty cat. And so that was always just in terms of telling the story of why Black Moms Connection exists. It's just like, oh, it's reverse racism or whatever. I'm like, everything that there was a point where when you Googled imaged mom, it was only white women that
Yeah.
came up.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where you are in the world, it's still that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Thankfully, BMC is kind of changing that. Now, when I do it, now it's obviously from my own computer, so maybe there's a cookie, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, look, there's black women. That's so
Yeah.
nice. There's a
Yeah.
point, especially early on, and BMC is like 9 years old, has an organization, 10 years old has a community, 9 years
I
old has
love it.
an organization. So in its early stages, when I was looking for, before I knew about royalty-free images and all this other stuff, I would
Mm-hmm.
Google mom and yeah, and then when I Google black mom, you know what came up the most? Porn.
Mm.
So this is what general society has associated with Black motherhood.
Yeah.
That we're all single, we're all baby mamas, we're all hood, we're all fat, we're all whatever, and porn.
Yeah.
And so there's things about Black motherhood that other communities don't have to think about. Talking to my son about racism is an inevitability. I don't have the luxury of ever avoiding that conversation. We had it
Yeah.
when he was in second grade. They're 7 in second grade.
Yeah.
He is now in seventh grade. He's 12, and he's had racial incidences at his school
Mm-hmm.
this year. And so, he wanted to change schools. We had the conversation, and I said, is this unique to this school problem, or I don't want you to think that you can run from your problems. He's like,
Yeah.
I know that I can't. I'm a black boy. I know that that's racism towards me is never going to change.
Yeah.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's 12 and he's already resigned himself to the fact that he will always have to go through and face some sort of racism.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about why BMC exists, why it grew from 8 of my friends to now a global village of 40,000 moms,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's why. Because there's things that no other parental group on the planet will really have to think about. And I'm not saying Islamophobia doesn't exist and xenophobia against, anti-Asian hate doesn't exist and all
Yeah.
these other things. But what I do know is anti-blackness is a global brand because all of the other isms and phobias we still get from them as well.
Mm.
Right? Let's be really clear. The racism that comes towards black people is not just from white people. It
Mm-hmm.
is from the South Asians and the Asians and, right? When I say
Mm-hmm.
anti-blackness, it's a global brand. Every country, every culture on the planet looks down on its darkest people.
Yeah. Oh,
Period. That's not feelings, that's facts. And
yeah.
so when we talk about preparing our children for racism and the inevitability of it, this is what I mean. It's not just about, oh, you hate white people and did it. First of all, I don't have the I do too many things to spend time and energy on hating other people. That feels
Yes.
like a waste of energy. I'm tired,
Yes.
but I'm just like, I do have to prepare him for, he's 12 years old. He wanted to go to the mall, hang out with his friends. And I was like, here are some rules. One, do not go directly after school. Don't bring a backpack. 2, don't bring a phone. 3, don't bring a
Mm.
because you're going to get followed around.
Yep.
Your friends may think it's funny and haha, throw something in your backpack. You leave the store, it goes off. These securities, they're not going to treat you well. How do you deal with the security? How do you deal if they call the police? It's like always get a receipt. I don't care if it's a chocolate bar. Make sure you always get a receipt when
Always.
you're leaving, because
Yep.
then they can't say that you stole that chocolate bar. You have proof of purchase. You should not be in a mall with no money. So I'm just like, I should know when you're going so that I can put money in your account. The
Yeah.
mall is a place of commerce. It is not a place to a community.
Yeah.
They don't care. They will call the police on you and kick you out. And
Yeah.
he's tall for his age. He's been in adult shoes for since he was 9.
Oh
He's
wow.
an
Okay.
11 and a half shoe and he's 12. I'm
Mm-hmm.
5'5" and we are looking dead in each other's eyes. Disrespectful, by the way. So I'm
Yes.
just like, he looks like a teenager. They're not going to
Yeah.
look at him and see a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And that's what society does. They age our children. They it's called the adultification of
Mm-hmm.
Black children, right? They look at them, they're like, oh, he must be 17. No, he's 12.
He's
He's
12.
just
Not even a teenager.
hitting puberty and smelling like onions. Like it's I don't the onions. It just I need to understand it. So I say
Yeah,
that
I get
to
it.
say like that was the impetus, and what I learned about myself in that process was, one, I can do hard things because I never thought my brain was gonna be able to get it together. Um, and that was probably the biggest stage that I'd ever been on, and so it made me a lot more fearless in other regards, where I'm just like, I'm not afraid to be on any stage anywhere. The things that I want to do and the places that I want to be and the places that I've been since, I'm just like, I'm not afraid of anything anymore, and I've passed that down to my son. My son is We were at some community, I don't know what it was, and we
Hmm.
got tickets, we got courtside seats. I will say I do miss the perks of MLSE.
Yeah,
And
I
so we were
bet.
there, and it was summertime, so SGA was there, RJ Barrett was there, and my son's just like, "Oh my gosh, my phone's dead. Can I have your phone? Go ask." He's like, "Can I ask for?" I'm just like, "Go. Here, take my phone. You know how to
Yeah.
use the camera. Go."
Hmm.
And he went up and he's just like, "Hey, do you mind if I?" So he has a picture with SGA, he has a picture with
Oh, I
RJ.
love it.
This is before RJ became a Raptor, so that was like super cool
Oh,
moment.
that's awesome.
My son is fearless. Like, we were at a thing with the prime minister and we were getting pictures done, and my son was just like, now I want my own. I'm just like, oh, excuse me for being in your picture with the prime minister. Let me move myself out of the way, right? And like, that's just how he rolls. And I'm just like, that is the confidence I have to give him in order to get through the world, because the world is going to do its most
Yeah.
to stereotype him and to cut him down. And I dare someone to do it on my watch.
Mm.
And so I think it's just to encourage other Black mothers for sure, but also to really give the realities of what Black motherhood is for everyone else that was in that audience.
That's amazing. I know BMC. I did. Funny enough, like I've known you and really enjoyed your work through Threads and just talking about basketball, and then even getting connected with you. I'm doing a deep dive, and I'm like, I'm just learning about BMC. Black Mom's Collection. Is that what Black Mom's
Connection.
Connection? I apologize. So I learned about that and the 40,000 members, a part of the village, and then I learned about the TEDx talk, and like I'm seeing pictures of you and your son and Justin Trudeau, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like Tanya is the real deal. Like I've enjoyed her for her basketball takes, and like outside of all that, like she is the real deal. So like I really don't have a question for that, and I just wanted to call that out because like that's incredible. Like I guess funny enough, I did have a question, but for time, I was
Hmm.
gonna cut it, but I won't because I do have one other thing I want to end on. But like between politics and motherhood and like your role as a village builder, like what is your focus? Like what do you want your, I don't want to say legacy to be because I don't want to talk about labor, but like you as a person, why do these things resonate with you so deeply?
It is legacy building. My legacy is my son first and foremost,
Mm,
and BMC. I call BMC and my son's siblings because
mm,
I started BMC when he was 18 months, and so I've poured a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the both of them,
Yeah.
into making them something bigger than me. And for me, I'm very mindful that I'm like, I'm not going to be the steward of BMC forever. I'm not going to live forever. But I
Yeah.
want my son, when he's 50, 60 years old, to be talking about this thing that his mom started when he was 2, and the women that it's been able to impact. And so when moms come up to me in the street, they're just like, I was able to get through losing my having a miscarriage, and your village was there for me when I needed it. Or we did a financial literacy workshop, and a single mom was able to buy her first home. And learning about generational wealth, the things that we're pouring into them to mental health. I'm just like, I don't know what the butterfly effect of what BMC is going to do. I know what it's done. I
Yeah.
know what we're doing. But I think ultimately for me, I'm just like, it always took a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise a mom too. And I want
Yeah.
us to get back to being community minded. You can have a huge amount of followers, you can have a whole bunch of fans, but if you don't have a build a community out of that follower or those fans, they're just people who they're just bots behind a digital screen,
Yeah.
right? The people who are really successful have figured out how to turn their fans and followers into a community. Community makes for they become brand ambassadors. They will
Hmm.
buy the merch, they will show up the events, they will do all the things, right? Fans and followers, they'll hit like and they'll hype you up in the comments. Yeah, drop this merch line. Yeah, you should do this event. And then they don't turn into consumers.
Hmm.
Community turns into consumers because they want to see you win. And so I think for me, I'm just like, if we can figure out how to get back to, if we're going to go back in time and, revert, to not having rights and all the other things from back in the day, let's
Hmm.
revert all the way back to when community moved things,
Yeah.
when it wasn't always about transaction, that we could collaborate with each other, that we wanted to see everybody win, that everyone has a different role, and not to say that anyone is any more important than the other, but everyone putting in makes the collective, makes the community better. And so I think for me, that's the legacy part. I want people to be like, she always listed how she climbed, she didn't gatekeep, she was the same online as she was offline.
Hmm.
Um, and she really did try to pour into and build community as much as she possibly could. And whatever that means, whether it's NBA Threads has a community, whether it's BMC or anything else, I really want that to be what is said about me at the end of my life.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. For a billion reasons, I'm happy that we're connected. But before we end, I always have to ask my guest one hypothetical question. And it's geared towards you and your background and everything. So I've got a question for you. So when it comes to sports in general, you're Canadian. And you've worked with the Raptors, and you've been a fan of the Raptors since the inaugural season with Damon Stoudemire and Tracy Murray. I was doing my research, but also just this kind of aside, I actually went to a game their inaugural season in Toronto. Like I used to live in New York, and my family they took me up to Toronto to go to a game, and it just so happened to be that I was at the game, sitting very close to the court during the game that the Raptors beat the 72-10 Bulls. I saw one of the Bulls' 10 losses, the one against David Stoudemire, who went off that game. I think Doug Christie had an amazing game, and I was there. Yes, in Toronto.
Yes.
So that's always like my claim to fame. Really diehard like sports fans are like, wait a minute, like you were at that game? So anyway, I was. But anyway, back to you. So with all of that, with your Canadian fandom, your love for sports, I need to know who are your top 5 Raptors of all time. And this is Tanya's list. It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have just your personal favorite top 5 Raptors of all time.
Top 5 Raptors of all time. Okay. So, in no order, because I refuse to do it in any type of order. Um, Kyle Lowry, Jamal McGuire, uh, JYD, Junkyard Dog, um, DeMar DeRozan,
Mm-hmm.
and Vince.
I love it. I
Those are
love
my
it.
top 5. In
There we
no
go.
order,
In no
because
particular order. You heard it here,
no
people.
order. I
Don't come
did.
for her for it takes. All right, Junkyard Dog is not the number 3 raptor of all time. Tanya's not saying that's not a hot take. It's just her personal favorite in no particular order. He could be 1, he could be 5. But, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Tanya, where can the people find you?
The people can find me, as we've talked about, on Threads. It is my happy place. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a text-based girly. Don't ask me for videos and dancing and trending topics, okay? I have a TikTok account, and the bio says I'm only here to watch the videos people send me in group chats. That's it. So do not try and find me on the TikToks. I am on Threads first and foremost. I'm on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram at @Tanya Hayles, at EventBestiePod. Those are the 3 places that you can find me. I'm also sassy on the LinkedIns. I realize my LinkedIn audience likes when I'm sassy. So you can find
Oh,
me,
okay.
ironically enough. It's weird. But
Yeah.
those are the 3 places that you can find your girl on the interwebs.
I love it. Well, Tanya, I cannot thank you enough for coming on Courtside Forever. Again, like these conversations is kind of niche a little bit, talking to parents about sports and like specifically how they kind of like show up and things like that. But like even when I was putting together a list of people who I would love to chat with, like you were on the top of the list. So when we got connected, I was like, yes, like I was so thrilled. And like I mentioned, just knowing you from Threads a little bit, but then like getting to understand like a little bit on a deeper level, and then to have this conversation, I'm just like, you are the truth. You are just like an amazing human being. Your son is so lucky to have you as a mom, and I'm just lucky to have this conversation. So, thank you so much for this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this year. Go Canada! I love Canada. Shout out to my Canadian friends, and shout out to you, Tanya.
We'll just keep it real neutral and just be
Well,
like, go Canada.
yeah, there
That's
we go. I love Canada. Anyway, thank you so much, Tanya.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Thank you for having me, and sorry for going overtime, overtime. But double
That's
OT in a
okay.
basketball game is great. So why
Double OT.
not?
I'm free basketball, free podcasting. I'm here for it all. Oh my goodness, that was the best. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you for being here for another episode of Courtside Forever, where our goal is to ensure that parents enjoy the best seats in the house. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend or two, and feel free to reach out with any comments or questions. I am your host, Ryan Rucker, and I appreciate you being here. Take care.